Well, Ben, the Echo Arena in beautiful Liverpool, England will be the site for UFC Fight Night 130. Main evented, as everyone knows, by Stephen the Wonder Man Thompson, taking on Darren the Gorilla Till. That's still just not a nickname that rolls off the tongue for me.
No, and it doesn't feel like it applies as well as I want it to for him.
If his last name was Tilla or Tiller, I could say Darren the Gorilla Tiller or Darren the Gorilla Till. Just, it doesn't land for me somehow.
It feels like your mouth feels like it wants to keep making noises.
Yeah. Is Stephen Thompson being cast in the Damian Maia role in this fight? Is he there to put Darren Till over in his hometown?
If he is, it's far from a sure thing that that's how it'll go down, especially against Darren, the fifth Beetle Till, because Stephen Thompson, just stylistically, is going to be a tough fight for a guy like Darren Till. I'm not saying that Darren Till can't win that fight. You know, big guy for the division, hits hard, aggressive, believes in himself, going to go out there and go after Stephen Thompson. But Stephen Thompson, a real technician in the stand-up game, and can just... He's one of the few guys in that division who can nullify your entire offense just with his feet. Just on sheer footwork and distance. And we've seen it. You know, we saw it against Rory McDonald, where he can force you into a situation where you're choosing between bad options. And if you don't have some other thing that you can pull out there to threaten him with, you can end up having a rough night. And not only can you end up not beating a guy like that, you can end up looking terrible in the process. You can win a decision over him even and end up looking terrible in the process. So if the plan here is like, well, Stephen Thompson's a guy who, if you beat him, you're suddenly and instantly a contender, I don't know. Feels like Donald Cerrone was a better bet for that than Stephen Thompson is.
Yeah, well, Stephen Thompson clearly has a lot of that high-level experience, having fought for the title, and up to this point, you're right, Donald Cerrone is the jewel in the crown of Darren Till, and this would certainly be the biggest win of his UFC career to date, at least the highest profile win over a guy that we have all recognized as being right up there among the elite of the division throughout his UFC career. And Darren Till is one of these dudes like who, as far as I'm concerned, sort of fits into the same mold as like a Kamaru Usman sort of guy, even though they're different stylistically, as one of these guys who like has all the potential in the world and seems like a guy, especially if you're looking for a new Michael Bisping to come along and kind of carry the banner for you in England, if you are going to continue, European expansion and doing regular shows in the UK, you could do a lot worse than to have a guy like Darren Till sort of leading the charge. And obviously he needs to get over the hump against Stephen Thompson here, to prove that he can be that guy. Although you just look at the locales of the UFC fights for Darren Till. He had the first one in Brazil, and since then, Dublin, Ireland, Stockholm, Sweden, Rotterdam, Netherlands, and then, of course, against Cerrone in Gdansk. So it's kind of clear, at least to me, where we're going with Darren Till.
International man of mystery?
Literally where we are going with him.
European champion, Darren Till?
Yeah, that's right. Throw the European strap on the guy.
I want us to hearken back all the way back to March of this year, where Darren Till showed up wearing that sweater that looked like a ransom note at one of the UFC events, forget which one, and to announce that they announced Darren Till was going to headline this event in Liverpool. No opponent at the time. It was just, that was enough which kind of, if you're Stephen Thompson, tells you a little bit about maybe where the UFC's head's at regarding Darren Till. And he went on the broadcast and dropped this one on us. Forget the T-Mobile Arena, forget Madison Square Garden. It's never been done at Liverpool. And everywhere around the world, people know what scoozers are like. There's never a UFC event that's going to be like the 27th of May in Liverpool, and I guarantee that to everyone in the world, all 9 billion people. Liverpool that night is the place to be, or to watch it on TV. And then a little later on, when I come out to those drums of Phil Collins, you're going to know that I'm the fucking man.
Scoozer is
people from Liverpool.
Slang for people from Liverpool.
Yes.
Okay. So I think
I don't know what they're like.
I think I followed all that, although you're right, I don't know what they're like. Is Liverpool going to be the place to be in the entire world?
For all 9 billion people?
Well, we couldn't all squeeze into the Echo Arena.
We can watch it on TV.
I don't know what the capacity is there, but it's not 9 billion.
I think it's only like 8 billion. I mean, I'll say this. it's an appropriately difficult challenge for him. If the UFC had like picked out somebody where they were like, all right, here's somebody Darren Till could smash in Liverpool.
Right.
I mean, for one thing, that would have been not dissimilar from what ended up happening when Conor McGregor headlined a Fight Pass event and from Dublin, beat up Diego Brandao, and everybody went absolutely batshit insane over it. But giving him Stephen Thompson, that does feel like you might end up just letting some of the air out of your own hype bubble here. Yeah,
well, it's another one of those matchmaking decisions that has the opportunity to go kind of wrong. You would assume from the way that they would prefer that it goes. On the Stephen Thompson side of things, though, Ben, like, are we worried that the 35-year-old Wonder Man is going to shuffle into sort of, we've seen the best of this guy territory if he can't get it done against Darren Till? He comes in off the win over Jorge Masvidal at UFC 217, but prior to that, he had the 2-fight stretch against Tyron Woodley. One of them was a draw, one of them was a loss. Prior to that, he had been undefeated since his UFC 145 victory or loss to Matt Brown back in 2012. So a long string of wins for Stephen Thompson. Is this like sort of a litmus test fight for him? If he loses it, are you inclined to say like, maybe the Wonder Man's time has not necessarily come and gone, but like the days when we thought the sky was the limit for him may be gone?
Well, it seems like I've even heard him making some kind of comments about how it seems like the UFC does not want him to fight for the belt again, at least as long as, Tyron Woodley is holding it down. And you can kind of understand why. But if you're Stephen Thompson, maybe you just resign yourself to like, all right, just give me all your contenders then, and I will eliminate them one by one until you have no choice but to give me a title shot again. And this is not a bad deal for him at all to get to go in there against a guy like Darren Till, who everybody's really hot on. If you can go in there and win that fight, then people have to start having that conversation about you again. They really have no choice. Also, though, I'm glad you pointed out, we've talked before about how Stephen Thompson should not get to continue calling himself Wonder Boy at the age of 35.
35 years old.
If you are in a main event fight and you're fighting a guy who is 10 years younger than you, there should be only one of you who is allowed to have boy in his nickname.
The worst thing about when Stephen Thompson fights is that I walk around for days afterwards with that Tenacious D song stuck in my head.
That's the worst thing, huh?
Well, I mean, what else is bad about watching Stephen Thompson fight? I mean, the Tyron Woodley fights, I guess, were not crowd pleasers, but he's mostly one of those sort of like, the new breed of karate fighter that acts like he's in a damn video game.
But this time, you're gonna hear the Tenacious D song, but then Darren Till's gonna come out to those drums of Phil Collins.
True.
You're going to know he's the fucking man.
It's going to be a race to see which one can get stuck in my head first. Do you want to know a completely useless stat?
Of course I do.
And I mean, this one, this isn't even a stat.
Okay.
It's more of a coincidence.
This is really sounding great.
Darren Till and Stephen Thompson have both won Fight of the Night honors during bouts that ended in a draw.
Oh. Okay.
Stephen Thompson when he fought Tyron Woodley to a draw and won a Fight of the Night honor. And then Darren Till against Nicholas Dalby in October 2015 ended in a draw and was named Fight of the Night. When was the last time that happened, Ben? That two guys who've won Fight of the Night for draws are going to fight each other?
I could not tell you.
Scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of statistical analysis.
Well, I learned nothing there, but thank you.
I told you it was useless.
Yeah.
I said up front, do you want to know a useless stat?
Yeah, I blame myself.
This is sort of a one-fight card, is it not?
Yeah.
I mean, Neil Magny against Craig White is your co-main, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
Arnold Allen against Mads Burnell.
Oh, yeah, Mads. That's,
Jason Knight versus Makwan Amirkhani.
Okay. I like Makwan Amirkhani, and I like Jason Knight.
Yeah, so there's a decent fight. And then you got Davey Grant against Manny Bermudez and Eric Spicely versus Darren Stewart.
Is Davey Grant in the Monkeys?
Yes, played the maracas, if I'm not mistaken. The guy that wore the hat so you knew who he was.
Elias Theodoro versus Trevor Smith, way down there on the Fight Pass prelims.
That's your Fight Pass prelim main event.
Yeah.
Featured prelim.
That's right, even though it comprises 50% of all the fights on Fight Pass there.
You want to do just saying stuff?
Sure.
Then we'll get out of here. Are we going to do a joint just saying stuff, or did you think of your own?
No, I mean, this was my own, but you also barged in on it, so I guess we'll do it together.
WWE SmackDown is going to Fox in a reported 5-year, $1 billion deal. Ben, so this week, what are we just saying?
Well, what did you want to just say about it?
I was going to say, uh-oh. I mean, if you're the UFC, Ben, and you're walking around feeling good about your 5-year, $750 million deal that you got for ESPN Plus, thinking you're going to cash in when you get back to the negotiating table with Fox, I think you got to wonder if they just broke the bank to land Vince McMahon's B show. SmackDown is of the two WWE television products, it's the lesser of the two. And Fox is just going to slide $1 billion across the table to land that.
Well, then I am going to add to that by just saying that I read this Hollywood Reporter report about it, which I assume is what you're referencing here. And I want to read this line to you. The deal would split WWE programming rights with NBC, which is expected to retain Raw. SmackDown is averaging 2.59 million viewers a week so far this year. I'm just saying, if you're the UFC and you've seen some kind of ratings declines, even for your shows on Fox, this is one where you might be starting to think, hey, could a couple guys like Chad Dundas and Ben Fowlkes maybe start themselves a pro wrestling podcast?
Would you start thinking, could Darren Till and Stephen Thompson maybe body slam each other out there this weekend, if that's what the people want to see?
Maybe you get Conor McGregor to come over and hit somebody with a table at your show instead of Bellator?
I mean, we're trending that way anyway.
Just saying.
Why not? Just saying. That's going to do it for this week's Co-Main Event podcast. We'll be back next week to break down all the stuff that happens at Bellator 200 and UFC Fight Night 130. And then we may, in fact, start to look ahead to UFC Fight Night 131. Rivera versus Moraes. That's on June 1st. So we got that coming up from the Adirondack Bank Center.
I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice.
In Utica, New York. As for right now, though, we are done. We are through. We are out.
So do we want to start spitballing names for our pro wrestling podcast now?
We did not have an easy time coming up with names for the MMA podcast.
And arguably did not do a good job.
and did not come up with the name, right? Didn't Sarah come up with the name?
Probably.
So we need to get her on the horn, ask her where she's at with the wrestling.
Yeah.
Then we got to figure out what's happening with wrestling.
So you're saying we got enough going on?
We're not just going to waltz in and